Hello, listeners. This is Rachel.
And Christy.
And this is UpLevel Productions coming to you with Wisdom from Our Elders Part 4.
Woo.
In celebration of International Coaching Federation's International Coaching Week, we are joined by our elders, John Vercelli, Hope Langner, Lorry Schneider, Hide Enomoto, and Eileen Blumenthal. And we're going to tell you a little bit more about what's happening on this episode.
Yeah, so this is our 4th year doing this. And the reason why we do this is because we think it's so important to honor our elders and you'll hear us use the language, sit at their feet and hear the stories. There's just so much rich, deep wisdom. And it's also the way that we celebrate International Coaching Week by honoring our elders. So we're going to hear a little bit about the coaching profession, coactive coaching specifically. And if you've been listening along this season, we are in an inquiry around right relationship. Today's UpLevel ? We've been exploring it in many different contexts. So we're going to explore this concept in the context of elderhood with these 5 brilliant humans.
And I don't know about you, Christy, but I feel as though I have just up-leveled on a whole nother level around just listening to the connection between right relationship and elderhood, listening to what elderhood means and looks like, and how we can learn from our elders how we as the next generation can be, how we go about our lives, about our work, with full permission. And just, I just feel like I have all these not new, but like I've heard again things that I've heard before, but they've been reinforced by listening to them.
Yeah, your smile is like so huge right now, and it's like you're bubbling over. And we hope listeners get that similar experience, that there's a richness and a depth to this conversation. And they are each also bringing their unique lens to this concept of right relationship. So we hope that you walk away flowing over like we are. And if you are a coach listening to this, that you take a moment to celebrate the profession. And if you are a business leader who is coaching or wanting to bring coaching inside your organization, that you take a moment to celebrate this great profession and to tune into your elders. Where do they sit? Where are they? And is there an opportunity for you to learn from them and ask some questions and receive some of their wisdom? Thank you for listening. Welcome to the UpLevel Podcast, elders.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
So our listeners have heard more about the context as to what we're exploring this year. And they know that we're here in celebration of Rachel, help me out here. That's why we have co-leaders.
International Coaching Week, which is by the ICF, the International Coaching Federation.
So we're celebrating that for the 4th year with our elders. And so let's just have each of you introduce yourselves, your name, location you're zooming in from, how long you've been coaching, and how you personally define elder, and any kind of personal relationship you have to that word, that term, that title. Lori, do you want to kick us off?
Sure, why not? Hi, everyone. My name is Lorry Schneider. I'm located in a small town, Dundas, in Ontario. For the international audience, it's about an hour west of the city of Toronto, which is the largest city in Canada. How long have I been coaching? Well, pretty well since the year 1999, so 25 plus years I've been coaching. How do I define elder? It's sort of weird. From the inside out, I don't feel at all like an elder. I'm still getting accustomed to the fact that I suppose I am an elder. And so in pondering how I might define it, what came up for me, some words that came up was longevity, wisdom, experience and knowledge. Hopefully I have a bit of some of that.
Thank you, Lori. I'm going to add this in. You pass it on to the next person.
Sure. All right, I'll pass it on to you, Eileen.
Oh, thank you, Lori. My full name is Eileen Blumenthal, and I'm zooming in from Sonoma, California, in the U.S., which is just about an hour north of San Francisco on the Miwok land. And I have been coaching about the same length as Lori, nearly between 25, 26 years, blessedly. And my goodness, if I look around at my fellow panelists, I would define as an elder as someone who's pretty hip, who's, as Lori said, has some longevity and that life has been rich and full, and somehow a bridge between the past and the stewarding of the future. So, I think holds a specific perspective and consciousness and really holds space for others. I actually am increasingly feeling good about being an elder. There's a tenderness that comes with it. And if I'm able to stay in the present and not engage much fear about the future, it's actually an experience of great joy and liberation. So delighted to be here as an elder, among others. John, I would turn to you.
All right. Thanks, Eileen. Oh, gosh. Let's see. I'm John Vercelli. I live in the mountains in Northern California in a little town called Gray Eagle that may not even show up on the map because it's owned by the family. I don't remember exactly when I started coaching, but it's around 1995-ish, at the beginning of coaching as a profession. For me, elder is, I don't have a succinct definition. It's something that I think we're just now rediscovering what it is, and that'll come out of relationship and conversation. And there's some characteristics. So as an elder, I noticed there are more people behind me on the trail than there are in front of me. And that it's been, I think elders are somebody that have been willing to learn along the way, on that journey, and keep accumulating the learning about themselves and life and things in general. And that I as far as elder, my relationship to it, I'm feeling it like a responsibility, one that I'm happy to embrace, that it's important, speaking of relationship and right relationship, it feels like it's been a missing piece in our Western society, that the representatives of this part of the journey have been mostly invisible. And that now we're becoming more visible, and the responsibility that comes with that is, to share what we've learned and to be continue to be learners.
Thank you, John. Who are you passing it to?
Hope.
Okay. Thanks, John. So my name is Hope Langner, and I'm zooming in from Del Mar, New York, which is a suburb outside of Albany, the state capital of New York. We're about halfway on the north-south axis between New York City and Montreal. So, and I've been coaching since 1996, which is 29 years, which is mind-blowing to me. I'm still getting used to the idea that I've done anything for that long, but I started in 96. I remember that really clearly. How I define elder, a lot of what John just said really echoes some of what I've been thinking when you asked the question. I think of elders as lifelong learners, and also resources to people. And I see both of those pieces as things we haven't accessed a lot in our culture. And that it feels like there's an opportunity now as our population is shifting, where, there are so many baby boomers that are now in the elder category, that I think just the sheer numbers of us and what is changing in our world is really putting more focus on elderhood. And I'm really curious to see what unfolds, because I'm still kind of finding my own relationship with it, because, it's sort of almost like a joke that I'm saying to myself, I'm too young to be an elder, but I really, I get that that's where I am, and needing to kind of find my way to really be in relationship with that part of myself. And so I'm really looking forward to exploring it more.
Oh, appreciate that
Yeah.
vulnerability, Hope. Thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And over to you, Hide.
Well, thank you, Hope. My name is Hide Enomoto. I am zooming in from Japan, where I live, and I live in a small town called Fujino, which is about an hour and a half away from Tokyo. And I've started coaching around the same time as Hope. I remember I got the certification in 1996, but I haven't been coaching formally these days. It has become more like a way of life for me. And elder, how do I define elder? For me, elder is not necessarily about age, although there's some relationship. It has more to do with certain knowing and being. I think an elder is someone who has accumulated experiences and wisdom related to a particular field or area. And in terms of being, there's a sense of modesty and a way to empower others. So elders don't show off their wisdom. They share it only when it's asked or needed. And they use it to empower other people. That's my sense of eldership. And I am aspiring to be one of those elders, but I don't think I'm there yet. I look forward to the conversation that I will be having with all of you today. Thank you.
Appreciate the humility, Hide. Thank you for being here. Well, let's go into right relationship, right? And our listeners who've been along with us for the year know that that's what we've been exploring. And so let's start by hearing your individual personal, how are you defining this concept, this term, right relationship? Hope, you want to kick us off with that?
Sure. So when I hear the words right relationship, what it makes me think about is being in relationship in a way that's really clear with the others that I'm in relationship with. And so that may mean just having clear expectations with each other or clear agreements, but it's also just a way of being with each other that honors the people that are there, that honors who we are or how we are together. And it's also, I think, there's also something that keeps popping up in the back of my mind that says, and it's not just being in right relationship with people, but it's also being in right relationship with the world around me, with the natural world in particular, but also even with belongings and how we are in the world, how we create relationship, because everything we do is in relationship to something. And so it's about integrity and holding a space that has meaning. So that's kind of where I am in this moment with it.
Beautiful. And elders, just like, let's just flow with this. So you don't need to be called on. Just if you feel like adding to, or, just come in when you feel called.
I'm really appreciating, Hope, that you expanded right relationship beyond just with others. I think that's really insightful. And it feels very, very true. There's a notion for me in right relationship about being in harmony with myself and others and nature and community, as you suggested. And there's I think you used the word integrity, and Hide used humility and care. So very much in that spirit. And as I say, I love the expansion beyond just right relationship with others. Yeah.
And in the direction of expanding, I feel like it's not only about the relationship that we have with the people or the being that is living right now. It also involves our future generations. We don't think of a relationship kind of beyond time. So we only think about the people, the being that's living on this planet right now. But I think we are living in a world where we have to think about the relationship with the future generations also.
I did, study a tradition where there were practices like entering a medicine wheel or entering a TP. You would repeat the phrase "to all my relations" as a reminder that kind of another way of saying what's being said here. All my relations include, like stars and planets and plants and animals and on and on. Both in the material world and spiritual world. So ancestors are included, great teachers who, have gone before. So I think for me, the thread is in those moments where I feel like I'm truly in right relationship, I'm living in the paradox of, unique and individual and connected and a part of a larger whole all at the same time. And so I don't, in those good moments, I don't worry about what people think of me. I care about other people as much as I care about myself. So those common practices that, we feel are like empowering and connecting are easier to access when I'm in those moments of right relationship.
Wow. Lots of wisdom here. When I first explored the term right relationship, I said, I know what it is, and yet I don't know what it is, and I'm not sure what it is. And then all of a sudden it occurred to me, boy, I think right relationship might be embedded right in the coactive model of ours.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to think that through a little bit in terms of how do we engage each other in a relationship that is a so-called right relationship. And I kept thinking of all the elements of, treating each other, engaging each other as if we are a creative, resourceful whole with respect, with dignity, being so attentive to one another. I think that's part of being in a right relationship, is to really be attentive. And the other thing that came up for me is also is there's something about being consciously in that relationship. And that to be in a right relationship requires a degree of consciousness and intentionality. So those are a couple of things. One other aside I just want to comment on. So happens we're graced with the presence of our daughters and grandchildren. And we were just commenting on how one of my daughters, Becca, is an incredible mother to her two children. And what came up from that conversation was the sense of how trusting her kids are of her.
Mm-hmm.
And that there's something that the way that she's been engaging those kids as we've witnessed, and oh my God, incredible patience, I have to say. They're both toddlers, which is a tricky age. But there's almost this inherent trust in who Becca is as a mother to them. That is just, it feels so right and is so much in right relationship that it just seems to capture a lot of what we are talking about.
Beautiful.
Mhm.
If I may add one more thing, I should have said this earlier, is that before I feel like before we talk about the right relationship, I think we have to talk about relationship, because I think the biggest problem is that we don't think that we are related. John used the word all my relations earlier, and it starts with noticing that you are related to all the things around you. But if we are not aware that we are related to begin with, there is no relationship, and there's no right relationship. So I think that we need to expand the sphere of relationship, so to speak, to include everything in it. And if we know that we have relationship, then that's the beginning of creating the right relationship.
Yeah.
Wow. As everyone was speaking, a word that came to mind for me also is reciprocity, as really important in right relationship, where there's a sort of dissolving of power, and that there's like, that fine line between giving and receiving, that it sort of disappears in the right relationship, and that we can meet as true humans, rather than any other definition of maybe a power relationship, that there's true reciprocity and mutuality.
Just seeing the infinity loop, seeing the images of the infinity loop. And, for those listening, I'm drawing it with my finger. It's like, this is the symbol of right relationship, isn't it? Well, and you've started the arc, Lori, you started the arc around coactive and even like coaching skills and contexts and concepts. Let's talk about how that is linked to right relationship. Like, how can it help us activate or restore or align or create right relationship? And you think about the years of experience we have in this room with coaching concepts, skills, and contexts, or coactive too. I mean, let's keep going where Lori started us.
Well, I kind of, maybe this is to get you to talk more about this, Hide. I was struck where you said, well, I don't coach anymore. It's more of like, I'm sorry, I don't remember your words, but like a life practice. It's like, this is how I live my life. So I'd love to hear more.
Well, I think the not just the coaching skills, but the way of being a coach has had a deep impact on my life, to say the least. And I feel like it has become a way of life, how I approach life and how I approach people that I encounter in my life. So, being curious with anyone, even though at the first sight you might think, oh, this person is, very different from me. But, exactly at those moments, I bring out this sense of curiosity and, and not like judging people. So if I didn't come across coaching earlier in my life, I don't know how my attitude towards other people was able to be like this. So curiosity and also listening at the deeper level. And basically, I think I'm always asking myself when I engage with other people is how can I empower these people? So that intention, that direction, that attention itself is based on my experience as a coach. So I don't think I was able to become who I am now without becoming a coach first. I don't think that explains what I meant.
Great. Well, I remember in the early days, Harry, Karen, and Laura, co-founders of CTI, talking about, we didn't have the word coactive at that point in time. It hadn't been articulated yet, but coactive was being practiced. We just didn't have the word for it. And they would talk about how coaching was just like there was a resonant need in the level 3 for something called coaching in this, like a professional relationship where one person puts their full attention on the other and supports them in finding their way. And the coach gets money in return, the satisfaction of being there. But they had at that point like this insight, like sticking on this theme where coaching is it's just the convenient model for how we could live our lives, in relationship with each other, being curious, assuming they're naturally creative, resourceful on the whole, being willing to put my agenda aside for a moment and support the other's agenda, all those things. So it may be, the word right relationship is like something I'm fairly new to, that term. I think it was hanging out way back there in the early 90s along with coactive. It is just becoming more in our awareness, I think.
Rachel, don't you love how casual like the elders are when they're explaining it? Yeah, listening, curiosity, this, that, like, because you've been living this way for many of you coming up on 3 decades, that it's like second nature, right? And that's what I'm really like pulling that thread right now of how these skills, ways of being, contexts, and tools have supported your becoming and who you've become. What else do you want to add? You haven't chimed in yet.
Well, I'll just say, I think.
Go ahead, Hope. Go ahead.
Okay, I think that you're absolutely right about that, Christy. It's like the concepts and the model, the coactive model. Even as we, some of us were there before it looked like it looks now too. But that model actually, it's part of how I live my life. Really, it's not really something I do at all, except when I'm coaching, like when I'm in a contracted relationship. But otherwise, I'm always bringing the context of the model and the cornerstones of the model, like to recognize that people are naturally creative, resourceful, and whole, creates a level of respect for everyone that I don't know if that was part of me before that, but it certainly is there all the time now. I just see people in a different way and trust them in a different way than I might have before I worked with this model. And then, it just goes on from there. The ability to listen and to sort of hear things between the lines and be able to name what's going on has really been a gift in so many different ways in my life and to the people I'm in relationship with. And I just want to say one more thing, because I also got to raise my kids when I was learning the model and actually working as a coach. And I really think it made a difference in the kind of parent that I was and the kind of way that I raised them and the relationships I have with them now. So that's the other thing I think was really significant in my life.
Well, things came up for me in terms of coactive coaching and right relationship was thinking about the impact on my clients and what I invite them to. And 2 things anyway that feel very clear to me after all these years is the extent to which people are unfortunately not necessarily very much in right relationship. They're much more in dysfunctional relationship most of the time. And so I think just the invitation to be in this kind of a relationship is an incredibly rare and precious thing that they experience. And the other thing that occurs to me alongside that is the extent to which people are not all that conscious to themselves. I think more so than ever before these days.
Mhm.
And I know one of the things that I can't help but do is invite my clients. I'm so aware of whether or not they're in tune with themselves as they're talking, and whether or not they're at all present to themselves. And there's something about inviting the client to their own being present to themselves that feels somehow very right and in concert with right relationship with themselves as well as with others.
I'm curious as we're speaking, the overlay of coaching and eldership, and particularly in the collective model, like the distinction between asking and telling.
Mm.
And as coaches, we tend to ask, and as elders, we're often asked to tell. And I don't know. I'm curious what others see in that dynamic and how it plays out as we experience coaching as elders,
Mm.
informally, probably informally more than formally.
I like questions better than answers.
No.
It's, I know, I do, yes. Thanks for the question. Making me reflect. I find that, my initial reaction is resistance if somebody wants me to tell. In part, it's like I don't really want to listen to myself anymore or something, or I've read the same thing about 10,000 times, and it's all in the leadership section of the airport bookstore. It's like, I don't really have anything left to tell you, but I'd much rather be exploring with you, like what's new to discover. Something, like that's more rewarding or something than going, oh yeah, back in 2000 we did X, Y, Z, whatever. It worked then, probably won't work now.
If I were to answer your question, Eileen, I think as we get more into the elder, I think our attention moves from using skills to how can I say, more aligned with the intention, like empowering other people. So I'm, as I gain more experience as a coach, I started not caring about all these kind of rules, like you have to ask questions. But if my intention is in the right place, that whatever comes out of my mouth, whether it's in the form of question or telling, our clients get it. You can ask, all those kind of questions, but, if you're asking from the wrong intention, the clients feel it. You can ask manipulative questions also. So it's not about the form. I think it's more about the intention.
Wow.
Of empowering others. And that kind of connects with what we have been talking about in terms of elderhood.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for saying that, Hide, and thank you for the question too, Eileen, because what I'm seeing is it's like if I get asked to tell something to someone, my response is going to be to ask them something. But the question's going to come from what I know. It's going to come from the elder part, if that makes sense. Because there's a way that I think to line up with what Hide's saying, there's an intention that they have to learn something. And if I partner with them in that intention, I can ask them the kinds of questions that will help them reveal what they need to themselves. And that's part of, I think, the sort of the special part of being a coactive coach that we can tap into.
What guidance? Actually, if you were to look at yourself 20 years ago, 25, 27, 29, 30 years ago, What guidance would you give that version of yourself? And we know we've got newer or younger coaches listening, younger to coaching. So like this is some drops of wisdom for them.
Mm.
And it can be in the context of right relationship or not. Just like what was the wisdom that would have served you? You got one, Johnny?
I have to laugh. I was thinking, like, what the heck was I doing that long ago?
Like, was that even coaching back then? What was that?
I think if I was to give my younger self advice, it would be know that presence and energy has as much or more impact as anything you could say or do, or any knowledge or experience you have. Well, it has its value, of course, but well, anyway, it's just, I was reminded in this conversation, you were all reminding me about how big of a contribution it is when we just are willing to give our attention to another person. Something magic starts happening, for both me and the client.
I say this partially in jest, but not entirely. I would advise my younger self to listen to my elders. Part of what's true is that is still the case. Like, it is always a very quieting, humbling, insightful conversation when I'm speaking with elders. So I would in honesty advise that. And consistent with what John was saying, also remember it's about relationship, not performance. Mm-hmm. Younger coaches are often wanting to do it right, wanting to do it well, when in fact it's so much about presence and relationship.
Advice that I give, I think I may have unconsciously given it to myself as well at the time, is to master the craft. Mm-hmm. And what occurs to me, it's not just mastering the doing of it, which is also very, very important, but there's something about mastering your presence. Mm-hmm. I love what Hide said before, master your intention. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And master being intentionally conscious.
Mm. And what helped you to do that, Lorry? What advice would you give to others around that?
Keep at it. Okay. If for me, I mean, my discovery of CTI and coactive was was an incredible epiphany for me. And the moment I tapped into that passion, it became that I was so connected to my passion, I had to do whatever I could to master this thing. So maybe part of it is find that passion and then away you go.
This is not directly answering your question, Christy, but I feel or I see coaching skills and even being a professional coach as like being in a gymnasium to practice your muscle to be in right relationship with other people, or not just the people but around you. I think, just like Lorry was saying, one of the reasons that we feel passionate when we come across, coaching is that we, deep in our DNA, we know what the right relationship is, and we get in touch with that DNA, and, we want to kind of remember it. But for some reason, we have, as a civilization, we have strayed off from that kind of right relationship, and, coaching emerged in response to the call of our times. Yeah. And we need these skills, or we need this profession in order to move from where we are now to where we need to be in the right relationship with all our relations. And so I remember when I founded CTI Japan 25 years ago, we are having a 25th anniversary this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I remember saying that my vision is to put the professional coaches out of business.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
My why I said that is, the reason that we can make business out of doing this is that this kind of relationship is not normal. It's rare. That's why.
Yeah.
So we have to spread this way of being and this quality of relationship so that the coaching profession is no longer needed.
Mm.
It's like business as usual. Everyone do it.
Yes.
Then the world will be in the right place.
Yeah.
Media, unfortunately, it's an incredibly secure profession.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Sure.
Peter, you've just kind of kicked us off around how you see right relationship impacting the larger community of society or the world, and love to just continue that conversation. Hear from others around how does right relationship impact the world and society.
Yeah, and larger systems at play.
First thing that comes up for me is how not right relationships is impacting this world right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
At such a level of destruction, and I don't even have the words for it. And so, how dare we not find our way to that right relationship? It's this world is in dire straits, and it desperately needs right relationship on so many different levels right now.
I hear that, and it sort of, to blend from the last question too, the piece that came to me about telling my younger self, and it's feeling also like what we need more of now is humanity, just connecting to our humanity and our vulnerability as living beings. So it's not just about being human, but it's being alive on this planet at this time, and to recognize all the other forms of life that are here, and all the resources. And I kind of go back to some of the words we were saying before, like integrity, harmony, consciousness, intentionality, reciprocity. All of that feels like so needed right now, and so connected to right relationship. And what a difference it would make if we could put coaching out of business. What a difference it would make in our world. Yeah.
Yeah, I would build on that, Hope. I think a couple of other words like that right relationship really centers justice and equity.
Mhm.
And it requires us to look at things like power imbalances and who is at the table and what does it mean to belong and how do we share power. So I think right relationship is a healing force for the world we find ourselves in if we can really practice it.
And what practices do you all have to stay aligned, habits or practices that you really lean into when things are challenging and hard?
Yeah, like through the times we're living through, how are you restoring right relationship within yourself and within your ecosystem?
Well, yeah, I'm reflecting on at different points in my lifetime where we'd be saying the same thing. Look how bad things are now, and we need to change and so forth. And whether it's Vietnam War era, the periods of assassinations that we went through, so I think what keeps me going is the idea that everything is as it should be, including wanting to close the gap between not right relationship and right relationship. And the thing I struggle most with is being non-judgmental of those who are perpetrating bad things. I mean, I don't know. Is there a place I need to draw a line? And if I do, then I'm disconnecting and putting them outside. So how do I work with that? So what I'm demonstrating is elders don't have all the answers.
True.
And that, that's a part of being a lifelong learner is, so there's lots of opportunity to get triggered into, anger, judgment, and so forth. And so paying attention to how do I recover, who's a resource that I can go to help me recover, and then see if I can expand my capacity to include more each time.
Well, I'm finding that one of the things I've been really working on is cultivating more compassion, both for myself and for people that think differently than I do, to have more space for that, because my feeling is that we're not going to be able to meet each other if we can't hold that space of compassion for each other. If we don't hold that, there's resistance. And it is not an easy thing to be doing. I will say that it's really, it's work. It takes work to keep looking there and keep trying to grow that part. And it feels like it's really needed right now. So that's kind of where I've been living.
Well, I like the word compassion that you use, Hope. I wasn't thinking about that word, but I was thinking in a similar direction. So I don't know if I can call this a practice, but I see a lot of us and them way of thinking. And that's also in me. I fall into this trap of approaching things with this us and them thinking. So when I catch myself doing that, what I try to do is to use my power of imagination and imagine how are them feeling and thinking in this particular situation. I mean, I think one of the one of the quality that human beings have is this power of imagination. So we can, use this imagination to, really imagine how the others are thinking and feeling. And that's, I think, the element of compassion. And I know that compassion, the word compassion comes from suffering with, right? Passion means suffer and com means with. So suffering with. So how to suffer? How can I put myself in others' situation and notice their suffering?
Something that helps me, it's a little tricky. First of all, I have to figure out or tap into the fact that I'm not in alignment with myself. And I know I'm not alone, that I often get lost down in there. I know one of the things that's happened to me, and maybe it's part of the elderhood's aspect of things, is I have far more awareness of that than I used to. And I tap into it much more quickly than I used to. So to me, that's the first critical step, to even know that I'm there. And when I find myself there, this is exactly what I do for myself, and it is helpful to me. And I just simply say to myself, here I go being human again. And I cut myself a lot of slack. I think it's my piece of self-compassion in there. So that's what helps me to recover.
Eileen, did you want to add something else to this? I'm just hearing your wheels turn.
I think I make a distinction, like compassion, but also, and I don't think anyone was excluding this, but really speaking the truth with love, leading with love feels like a practice that's essential, particularly in these times when it's easy for me to feel quite judgmental and actually seething about what other folks are doing, what I perceive them to be doing. So to find a way to validate their experience, like what is true for them, without endorsing it or agreeing with it, but to lead with that sort of inquiry. Like, what is it in your world that has you feel this is necessary? And then to speak the truth, but lovingly. And when I go over the edge, which I do with some frequency now, to try to find a way to repair, take responsibility and repair and restore. So I'm more forgiving, I think, of myself as in this way, but quick to also get back in balance with it.
And you are certainly the model for sharing the truth from a place of love. That's always been my experience of you, Eileen. I think you're like in the dictionary, it's your face beside that capability. And like a thread that I really heard through is something as you've grown is there's more self-compassion, there's more self-forgiveness. It's like there's more room for that, which has given you more capacity to be forgiving or in compassion with others. So I think that's a tip for all of us listening. It's like it starts with ourselves. I'm curious to hear about an elder that has had a significant impact on you. And you don't need to name the person. You could just name the impact or share a story. Like, what was it about that person or that moment in time that just has sat with you and is with you now?
Boy, yeah, this is weird. An elder that comes to mind for me that had a huge impact on me was one who abused his power. And fascinating human being. He had incredible generosity of spirit, but amazing capacity to humiliate and abuse at the same time. I don't mean physical, I mean emotional. And it was a very highly dysfunctional model of power. And so for a while it shut me down. And one of the things that really brought me back to myself was leadership. And the recognition that for me to step into my power didn't mean that I necessarily meant any notion of being abusive, but to find my way to step into my power in a way that was of service and not of abuse. And so, as I said, it's a weird one that comes to mind, but that was a very powerful model for me.
Yeah. Of how not to do it, or not modeling it, and how you don't want to follow in their footsteps in that way. Yeah.
The elder that I'm thinking of fascinated me because he was so full range, from great sense of humor. He enjoyed reading romance novels, but he was also very philosophical and deep and insightful. And I don't know, just like in his presence, I could tell he was seeing the shimmering, so to speak, like seeing through the veil between this world and the other worlds. And, so he was just a good reminder of, be human, have a good time, and, like be fully present in the moment. And that's when things open.
Someone who came to mind for me when you asked is a former president in the United States, Jimmy Carter. And I'm remembering specifically seeing him at his wife's funeral. I think they had been married, I don't know, at least 70 years, maybe more. Yeah. And when his wife died, he was in very poor health himself. As many know, he's since died. But he showed up at that funeral, the absence of vanity or ego, and really showed up with the fullest heart I can imagine, and with such presence and love. It was just this gorgeous, for me, example of what it really means to show up. Oh, so powerfully. And I'm struck to this day by that example and inspired, and it feels like an invitation to show up similarly.
I was thinking about a couple of people as someone who has impacted me, and I think a common quality that they show is something that Eileen was pointing to. I think, those people are in full humanness. And I think Hope mentioned about, humanity earlier as well. So those people who I was impacted by always show up as him or herself, not adding anything, not subtracting anything. They're just there, as real as they can be. They're real human. That's what comes to me.
Yeah, that actually captures what I was thinking also. I got to meet someone that I had huge respect for. And when we arrived, she was on a inversion table. This was somebody who was quite on in years, but that was one of her practices to care for herself. And we got there and she chatted with us from where she was and then got up, offered us some wine. We sat down, had a chat. And it's really the only time I met this person, but I still remember every single thing we talked about. And it was really her humanity that touched me really deeply. And the wholeness of being with her through the entire experience. She wasn't going to change her self-care because there were people coming over. It was great.
Powerful.
Rand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when we think about elderhood and how different cultures hold elders differently, we wanted us to bring that into the room, and whether you are connected to your culture of origin or the culture you are now immersed in, you can answer this question from whatever place. But we want to hear from your perspective, how do you view your culture as holding elderhood? And what are you hoping unfolds with the way your culture is holding elderhood?
My thought is not fully formed, but I just wanted to kind of kick us off. So I don't know where my sense of elderhood comes from. I don't know how much of it comes from my Japanese culture or through what I learned, outside of Japan. Maybe both. And sadly enough, I don't know if my fellow Japanese people would agree with me, but I don't think the Japanese culture right now holds elderhood in full respect. I don't. It used to be much more than it is now, but I don't think it is valued, and I don't see many elderly people who are showing the elderhood either. So I don't know. It goes both ways. I think the respect for elderhood needs to come back. And at the same time, the elderly people, or maybe not elderly people, but we as general people has to develop this sense of elderhood that deserves to be respected. I think it goes both ways.
I know that this is a tough question because it gets me thinking about, well, what the heck is my culture? The closest I can come to is my father's side of the family is Italian, And there were more relatives from his side locally than on my mom's side. So all I know is that growing up, I remember like family dinners that included just a large number of people, and it was extremely loud, and there was a lot of food involved. And that I don't know, when I think back to those times, it was fun and felt safe. And half the time I couldn't understand what was being said because they were speaking Italian. Uh, but like there's something there. Um, it felt complete. Like there was a sense of wholeness that created that seems missing right now.
Mm-hmm.
That, um, that was a time before social media, before internet. So human relationships were all we had to work with.
Yeah.
There wasn't all these other distractions and ways of communicating. So I know I'm wanting that back. I'm wanting that sense of sitting around together, and feeling connected, uh, and just experiencing that wholeness that comes when you have multiple generations and identities all in the same room together, just being together.
What's coming up for me as you're saying that, because I was also troubled. Is it North American culture, Western culture, Jewish culture? There's a whole bunch of cultures. When I think to my own family culture, I feel pretty comfortable that there is respect for elderhood. And I guess that means there's respect for me as the patriarch of my family right now. When I look at the world at large, and I'm fascinated for you to say the same thing about the Japanese culture, Hide, I think this all comes back to there is such a vacuum of right relationship in the world right now that I don't know that there can be respect for elderhood. Because I think those two, as we've been talking, go so hand in hand that that's what's coming up for me on that.
I'm curious about the question through the lens of the queer community and elderhood among queer people. And first thing that comes to mind is like a deep well of sadness when I think about how many gay men in particular were lost as young people. And so for the longest time, the community actually lacked gay men as elders. So many perished in the epidemic. Just wave of sadness comes over me as I remember that. But I also remember lots of community organizations doing a campaign that was called "It Gets Better," like as a way of reassuring younger people that you can be yourself in the world, you can thrive. We're here to support you. I think there's a modeling that elders in the gay community do that's deeply respected and appreciated. And I think about the experience of trans people this day and how there's such a requirement. If one is to thrive, you need to claim your own dignity, your own identity, and that I see a number of elderly people in the queer community come out as trans or live their authentic life. And I think there's, again, such a powerful modeling in that it's so valuable and so valued. And particularly as people are attacked, like a fortifying around elders to be ourselves, whatever our culture, whatever our identity. I think there's an interesting conversation about that in the queer community.
You're right.
I'm seeing, and this is kind of off of what you're saying too, Eileen, in the community I live in right now, a lot of the older people, the elders really, that are becoming more activist. And it's for different kinds of issues. Some of it is supporting queer folks. Some of it is around solar energy. Some of it, like every Monday on the corner in the center of our little town, I drive past people that are protesting about what's happening in the Middle East. And on Tuesdays, they're protesting what's happening in government. And it's a really interesting thing. And it's not the same people all the time, but they are mostly the older people in our community that are out there with their signs. And it doesn't matter what the weather is. And there's something about that's actually really inspiring, that they're at a place where they're really speaking their minds and willing to literally take a stand for the stuff that matters to them, and almost like paving the way for some of the younger people in the community to feel a sense of safety and like being held as things are happening. So that's just my sense right now. But the other piece of it is, to go back to the question, is I'm not really sure what my culture is right now. Is it where I live? Is it where I come from? Is it where my family came from? I don't know. But it's like, so I'm in the place of where I live and who's in my current iteration of family. And that feels like my culture right now.
They're beautiful answers. And as we've been exploring right relationship this season, one of the themes that is coming up is folks' disconnection to their lineage, and how that has created an instability and a sense of being out of right relationship because we've gotten very far away from the root. And maybe we are tapping into other lineages because we feel called to them. And to restore right relationship, what we've been learning is it's important for us to go on these quests to like restore the root and understand what were the stories around the fire back in the day at our particular lineage, so that's just something that's been coming up, and hearing some of your answers. I don't know, it's inspiring me, I know, to go and really do my work and understand my roots and my lineage so I can restore right relationship in that ecosystem. So thank you. I think we're starting to bring the ship, land it somewhere. I don't know, but this has been so deep and beautiful and rich and poetic. And Rachel, I don't know about you, but what I'm wanting to end this on is for each of you just to say whatever in your heart in this moment, and in whatever context you feel will point us, the next generation, humanity, and support us to keep, doing this work in the world.
And it can be connected to elderhood. It could be connected to right relationship, or it could be connected to anything else that you want, a wish for us all, or a longing.
Yeah. I'm going to try a blend and lead here a little bit.
Blend and lead.
You can tell me how I did. I mean, I absolutely want to answer your question, and I'm curious to hear from you too, Christy and Rachel, because I think you said this is year 4 of doing this, and you've talked to us now. You've talked to many other elders, or close to being elders. What are you? I would love to hear, like, what are you picking up is the potential contribution, whether it's in an organization or if we do something in our communities, like if we could wave a wand and make elderhood a thing that everybody understood and made use of. What do you see the opportunity?
Thank you for modeling elderhood. Turning it back on us.
I've always been drawn to being in the presence of elders from a very young age. Whether it be my lineage elders, my grandparents, or the people in my family and ancestors. But there is something that is so profound, and I've experienced it just in this time that we've had together, of wanting to be in the presence and wanting to tap into your wells. Like there's this, so I don't know if I'm answering the question, but opportunities to be with the elders of our communities, whatever communities, having places where we can come together and hear from you, speak to you, ask you questions, knowing that you're going to ask us questions back. You're not going to give us answers. I'm okay with that. But there's something very profound and deeply, I'm just feeling so full. That kept on coming. You said full humanness. There was the word full kept on coming up. Full range, full humanness. I wrote these things down. There's something that is filling me up personally. And I think there is a longing for many others in our community to have the opportunity for that. I don't know what that looks like and how. Mm-hmm. And hopefully I'm answering your question. Yeah. What about you, Christy?
Yeah.
Well, I think the how might be getting back into the circles and sitting around the fire together and having our elders like do what you just did here with us. And like Rachel said, share the stories, the origin stories, what worked, what didn't, the trials and tribulations, because that's what our ancestors did. All cultures, if you track back, that's what they did. And we've gotten so far from that. And I think that's one of the reasons why humanity is so wounded right now, is because we've gone so far from the circles and sitting around the fire, the medicine of the fire, just looking through the fire at each other, right? That in itself, like the elements, bringing the elements back, and the elders having that wisdom and telling us those things, because we become so disconnected from, nature and the elements, and really understanding the power and the medicine of these parts of being human. So my high dream is that there's more circles where the next generation gets to come and sit at the feet of the elders and hear the stories, ask the questions, be asked questions too. But really, it's a place where the elders are downloading information and wisdom. We need it.
Mm-hmm.
We need it. I do think this is one of the remedies. I think this is one of the ways to restore right relationship. And maybe you could say a little bit about the project happening at CTI, so we can inspire other businesses who are listening to this to consider projects like this inside their organization.
Well, thank you for your answers. And as far as the project at CTI, we have a group of 6 of us who have self-proclaimed elders, and we're beginning to formalize our relationship with CTI and kind of reveal ourselves to staff and faculty. It hasn't happened yet, but we're on the brink. And all I can say is I'm convinced that what comes with elder is a new level of privilege and responsibility. Privilege born out of not having any reporting relationships, having no goals we're being held accountable for. None of that doing is required. And I'm kind of speaking for a little circle, and I truly believe that our presence and our being with you and in relationship with you is a contribution.
Absolutely.
Even if what we have to say may be outdated or an old perspective or a non sequitur. I'm noticing non sequitur is a bigger part of my life. Anyway, so as an organization, we believe there's true value, and thank goodness the CTI leadership team believes in that too. And that this is a chance to practice the balance between being and doing. Just like in the coactive model, it's always been there, this balance, this dance between being and doing, call it active, and living in the hyphen. So I'm excited about the possibility because it's really hard to live in the hyphen when all you hear about is the doing. Like when you have a real job and a specific role. And that elders can be a counterbalance to that and an invitation, into the being side and to hang out there for a while.
Yeah. So if there's anything else inspired from that and or both, if you want to share what's in your heart from this place, all is welcome. Thank you, John, for bringing us to that place.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I want to echo a phrase that John used that I loved, which is self-proclaimed elder. And I so appreciate that. I think saying yes to this panel was an act of that, and frankly, with a little bit of shyness. But now I feel like I'm embracing it. That's that self-proclamation, and I'm grateful for that. And just to say my heart is full. And thank you. Lorry?
When you mentioned disconnection from lineage, it really struck a nerve for me. And what I came up with is, I think the world at large is incredibly disconnected. And the circles represent reconnecting to meaningful conversation. That's what I'm coming away with from that.
Yeah.
And thank you for the opportunity.
Good to see you, Lorry Schneider.
I could just bounce off of what you just said, Lorry, because what strikes me as conversation is relationship. It's like being in meaningful conversation is being in relationship. And the more we're able to stay in conversation, the more it is right relationship. And it extends again, like I keep thinking about being in a relationship bigger than just other human beings. And I think about it's the giving and receiving is the conversation in other ways in our world. And that feels really so needed right now to be doing both, to have giving and receiving be in more balance in ourselves and in how we relate to the rest of the world. And it just starts here. So that's what's in my heart right now. And thank you for having us here and for this great opportunity to be in conversation.
Let's do more, please. Thank you. Thank you, Hope.
Well, what's in my heart right now is that relationship is contagious, whether it's a good one or a bad one. And I think as leaders or elders or coaches, we have a kind of responsibility, or I should say opportunity, to engage in right relationship one person at a time. And, some people might think that, just working with one person, how could I affect the world? But I think as relationship is contagious, if you create right relationship with your clients, that would go beyond, those, it will affect the relationship that your client would have with people around them. So, let's spread the good ones, the right relationship.
Let's spread the infinity loops and the circles. Yeah.
So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Hide, and for a call to action to all of us around one relationship at a time, creating good ones, right ones. I'm feeling very, very full. Don't know about you, Christy, and just, again, so grateful to be at the feet of our elders.
Thank you for the the miles you've walked and the lessons you've learned, and for so generously sharing them with us. And I hope you have many more miles to walk and many more lessons to pass on to us and the next generation too. Love and appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.